Yeah, just a little bit about storage formats. It's just to talk a bit about the digital numbers we use to represent components of colors. And we use, when doing graphics programming, especially when doing shader programming, you usually need to use different kinds. There's the ones that are based on an unsigned integer. Oops. This. And there's the formats that are based on a floating point representation. And here we usually have 8-bit formats and 16-bit formats. So with 8-bit unsigned integer, that's the one that I use in my Photoshop color picker, 0 to 255 numbers. So RGBA value is 4 bytes. It's 1 byte per component, and that's each one is a byte, so that's a number, 8-bit number. It's a number between 0 and 255. But we also sometimes have these 16 bits to have better resolution, and that's of course 8 bytes. For RGBA color, it's 2 bytes per component. And that's a very easy to decode because it's unsigned integer, which is the same number as the binary value. Floating point values, the normal floating point values that we use, like if we take any sort of programming language normally and write the word float, or what it is, float in C, or many other languages as well, float, that's a 32-bit format. It uses 32 bits to represent one number, and that's floating point, so it has an integer part and an exponent part. And of course, with 4 bytes, 32 bits per color, it's 16 bytes to represent one color value. It's a very precise way to do it. This is actually what we normally use also when it's for registers for processing in the computer and so on. The registers are usually this width or even wider, so we're used to that. But we also have this one, and it's usually sometimes in shaders called half, because it's half resolution, so it's 16 bits floating point value, less precision. Quite commonly used also on GPUs and shaders. Of course, the ranges are different. These values, this 0 to 255, that actually represents the color value of 0 to 1. So it's implied that it's divided by 255 when we look at these values, like when I do it in the color picker on Photoshop here. Just put this like this. And over here we can have values that are much larger. We still don't really like to have values that are less than 0. But we can have very bright colors, brighter than we can see, if we want that. This infinity. It's not entirely true of floating point, but it can have very, very high numbers. I think it's 1 to E37 or something like that. Also, with floating point, the higher the number gets, the lower the precision becomes. So those are the values that we work with. Good. So far so good. Now we move on to something that's more close to the pipeline. All this stuff has been about color. I want to talk a little bit about points and vertices. This is the other data type that we use a lot. Graphics programming. Oh. Oops. Now this, I mean, points in space is probably very familiar to everyone. It's just a position in space, so it's 3 space, x, y, z space. It's 3 numbers, and it denotes a certain location in space. The point doesn't have any extent, or it's just a precise position in space. And of course, we can use a vector to represent a point. But we must be clear when the vector is a point and when it's a vector or displacement, because it doesn't really say that. There is a way to do that with homogeneous coordinates, which we will look at later in the course. But now we're talking about geometry, graphical geometry. We always talk about usually, at least, the most important thing is positions in space. So that is points. I have a mesh that I downloaded. Where is that now? It's just an example image. There. I'm just going to put that in background. So this is a mesh, a bunch of triangles, and all these triangles are really just defined by these points that are at the intersection points of the triangles, and that is what we call a vertex. So I'll just highlight one of these. So we take this one here. Oh, that was pretty ugly. Thank you. Welcome to a drawing class. Drawing class with the mouse. We call that a vertex, as I said. And another term that's used in the book, which I think is good in a way, is heavy point. A little strange, maybe, but it just means that the vertex is basically a point, but it has some additional stuff on it, some more attributes than just the positions in space. So that's what they mean by this word heavy. But it is mentioned in the literature. I'm just gonna write a little, draw a little arrow. Completely clear. There. So apart from this point in space, what are these attributes then? Just write the most common ones that we use. I will. Oh, a bit with the... thanks. Yeah, good point. The projector is more luminance correct. This, attributes. Yeah, the first additional attributes that we can use is we can have a color associated with the vertex. We also call that vertex colors, incidentally. So it's just a color value that goes with the vertex. We could have this maybe. So a color value. The second one could be a normal vector. I'm just gonna just copy a little bit of this. Nope. Stop it. Stop it. Thank you. Blue normal vector, and we try to draw that. A normal vector is a vector which shows what the attitude of the surface below it is. And we normally draw it at the point of the vertex, although it is, of course, a vector. So it just shows a directionality of the surface. Then of course there are texture coordinates. Now this mesh we're looking at is actually not textured, but it could be. There could be a texture on it. There. So I'm just gonna draw a little texture. Could be a texture. And the texture coordinate says something about which point on the texture is this vertex related to. Oops. Use a blue color instead. Oh. So it's some point on the texture here. And there can be many others. We can have many other attributes, which is just like application defined. We do many types of graphics, and sometimes we define additional attributes for vertices. So shader defined. Oops. Go away. Thank you. So in that way, a vertex is more than a point, but it's also a point, and sometimes they're used interchangeably. Yes. Now we will look at the pipeline itself and what shaders are. This term is a very central thing in the pipeline. I am going to draw a box. Let's get the size right. Something like that. There can be many representations of the pipeline. You will see several of them. There are also two different representations in the literature for this course today. There's one in the book, and there's another one in Martin's wiki book. And it depends a lot on the point of view how many boxes are in this pipeline and what they exactly are. It is, of course, the principles are almost the same, but you see different representations of them. So I've chosen this version, which has relatively few. The most important ones has 5 stages that I think are important for this explanation of where the shaders are. But in reality, it's on a modern GPU. It's the pipeline that the GPU implements can be quite a big, long pipeline that does a lot of things in parallel. The first stage here is vertex shading. The second stage is something called primitive assembly. Third one is rasterization. And then we have fragment shading. Finally, some fragment operations. And I should also state what is the input and what is the output. Where are we in the input and the output? we say that over here we have the application, the CPU, whatever the game, if it's a game, all the game code, that's where all the data comes from for the graphics pipeline. So what graphics should be rendered and where and with what properties and so on. And just put these into place. Rasterization. Fragment shading and fragment operations. Now the output, what did I put here? As sort of where the data goes more than what it is. And we something called a frame buffer. A frame buffer in this respect is more or less equivalent to the screen. Not too much space here. Just gonna make a little space. Just a minute. Yeah. And it's a pipeline, so we have data passing through. Data goes from the left to the right. Oops, what am I doing? There. Okay. If you look at the data that's being put through this pipeline by the GPU, it sort of changes shape as we go along. We can talk about the basic entities that go through, and on this end we have vertex is a basic entity, and in the middle the vertices become triangles, triangle, and over here they are converted to something called fragments, fragment. Different color for that. So this is just another way of looking at it, or looking at what is the data that we operate on. But the reason I mention these entities is because this is what the shaders operate on. Specifically, the vertex shaders operate on vertices, and the fragment shaders operate on fragments. And in between we have these triangles, and we'll see later how they fit in. Just to elaborate a little more on that, what they operate on, say what is the input, what is the output. We have a vertex shader, sometimes call that VS for short. I should say I'm going to talk more about this. If you haven't heard about this stuff before, it might not be everything you understand because I'm using a lot of terms that are strange. Don't worry about that. We'll talk again about shaders. We will work with shaders, not today so much, but in the coming times. But very briefly, what a shader is, I'll mention that in the next slides also. A shader is a small program. So the word shader is really a small program that gets executed a lot by the GPU, and that probably you guys write, or a standard little small program that the makers of the engine you use wrote. But it is a small program. So this is why I want to talk about these inputs and outputs, because what is this little program? Well, it operates on some data that it gets as input, and it transforms those data in some way and outputs some other data. That's what all programs do, and that's what a shader does. So what a vertex shader is, it takes a single vertex as input, and it calculates another vertex as output. That's all it does. It just takes some vertex as input. That's maybe a vertex that's defined in some model space somewhere, and it transforms that vertex, and it also works on the attributes, calculates maybe some more attributes, but essentially it's just converts one vertex into another vertex. Fragment shader, FS usually called. Well, that is exactly the same actually, but just with fragments. Now this word fragment again didn't explain much, I will come to that. You can think of a fragment as a pixel on the screen. It's not exactly the same thing, but it's more or less the same thing. A fragment shader takes a fragment in, we want to do this pixel, then it does some transformations on it to achieve various graphical effects, and then it outputs what the fragment should be. And as I said before, pixels on the screen really just have one attribute, it's the color. There are a few more that for some special effects, but essentially what we're dealing with in a fragment shader is just colors. The fragment shader for every pixel on the screen calculates which color that pixel should be, and that's more or less what it does. Let me just put this headline. This is also an important fact about shaders, and an important limitation about shaders is that they can only work on one entity at a time. So, for instance, there is actually, but none of these shaders, these normal types of shaders, vertex shaders and fragment shaders, they can't work on a triangle, for instance, because a triangle is not a single vertex; it's like 3 vertices. They only operate on one vertex at a time, and they can't see the other vertices at all. And this is the fact that it has been done like this is part of the reason why a GPU is really fast and can do a lot of processing in parallel. That is because, like for instance, every vertex doesn't know about all the other vertices, so you can do a lot of vertex shading in parallel because there's no